Welcome back to the Best Ball Happy Hour here at 4for4 Football. As always, I'm your host, John Daigle. Joined today, first up, friend in life, still living off the high of a top 100 finish, I think it was, in the World Series of Poker. None other than, of course, Rob Coakley of Spike Week. Rob, how's it going?
Close. 138th. But
a lot has happened since then.
I made the same amount of money as if I had finished 100th or 99th. So it's all fine. It's all good. But yes, I'm still living off that high, firing a ton of best ball tournaments.
Yeah, I know you are in the drafter streets today. And then, of course, none other than Chris G, who has been doing weekly winners content for us at 4for4. How are you feeling, Chris? Fresh back from Amarillo, I believe.
El Paso. But yeah, it's
same
been
difference.
Great, man. It's pretty much the same thing anywhere down in South Texas.
All right, so we decided, well, there's been a lot going on behind the scenes right now. Is we were going to do a DraftKings 555, and then I think we have now pivoted instead because Underdog opened up another Bulldog. So I think we're trying to fill, let me throw this up on the screen for everybody, a $500 Bulldog instead. We will see if it fills. What we might have to do live on the spot is instead go to DraftKings back into a 555. But basically, we are trying to wait it out, Rob, and see which one will fill first, and that's the one we'll jump into. Either way, we're drafting for $500 today. I know that.
I'm going to do you one better. I have jumped into both. So if one of them fills, we will obviously stream whichever one. We need 9 for Underdog. We need 7 for DraftKings. So that's what we're looking at right now. I'm gonna light up the bat signal while you guys talk for a second and try to get some people in this draft.
Do that, and I'll hit retweet on both those just to let all the whales out there know that we are waiting in the lobby for them, trying to fill this up. Chris, until that point, what has been some changes for you? Of course, you filled Best Ball Mania last week, so what have you been doing on the side now instead?
I did a lot of the Pitbull, which has already been filled. I got as many entries as I could into the Big Dog. I've actually split a couple 555s, so I'm doing the slow draft version of that with a couple of guys from the Deposit Kingdom. And yeah, man, I've been really focusing on my primary job for a little bit. I've been pretty busy there, but at night I'm doing all the best ball I can get my hands on right now.
There was a lot of overreacting from preseason week 1. I think a little bit of it mattered. Not a lot of it, as everyone's trying to make it be. But any slight adjustments you've been making since that first slate of games?
I've just been really focusing in on like grabbing a little bit more of Kenny Gainwell later, like in the 15th, 16th round. I'm kind of interested to see more about what happens in the Ravens backfield with Gus and Justice Hill, or Keaton Mitchell. I think he's a little too light to be a serious contender, but he has been making some splash plays. I'm just really happy that I filled it already because all this overreacting to preseason, I feel like I've gotten some good CLV. Well, the only downside is I'll probably miss out on a couple of these 3rd or 4th wide receivers that are popping off in the depth charts that I might have missed out on if I still had a couple entries. So that's what I'm thinking about mostly.
I made a few adjustments on our Underdog rankings in particular, but nothing too crazy because I don't think a lot stood out. I did think it was pretty significant that Zay Jones, for example, was playing in 2 wide sets over Christian Kirk. Zay Jones is a player, in particular on DraftKings. I thought Zay Jones has been one of the easiest players to get anyways. Because remember, just last year, we saw a half of a season. Like everyone remembers Kirk's 1,000 yards, but from week 11 on, without Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones already outperformed Christian Kirk. Zay Jones is the one that had 25% target share to Kirk's 22.7% and had 4 top 8 finishes to help everyone win and get into the best ball playoffs over that stretch. So Zay Jones already mattered a lot. That ADP, him being having such a large margin between Kirk, never made sense to me. And then I guess some of the late round tight ends, but even the late round tight ends, they're still late round tight ends, whatever. There's like 12 guys there.
What do you think about Joe Mixon? I don't have a lot of him, but I'm under the opinion that he's going to play the whole season, even with the court cases going on. And I'm just interested in your take on that.
If I had to guess, I think we're going to get a 2-game suspension. If I had to make an educated guess, that's kind of where I lean right now. I could be wrong, but even then, like Alvin Kamara, something Rich Rebar always talks about, and he's right, is that everyone always overreacts to suspensions. It's like how I draft Breece Hall now. Everyone is overreacting when we're looking beyond week 6, really, for a player of that magnitude. So a 2-game suspension.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say a 2-game suspension to me, if I'm assuming that even, Joe Mixon really shouldn't budge, especially given the players he's around.
Yeah, I think the charge that he's on right now is like a menacing charge, but that could be pled down. It could be, gone to a misdemeanor. I mean, obviously, we're just speculating here. The judge is going to make the ruling. All the stuff that came out about the civil stuff has nothing to do with this case that's currently while he's on criminal charges. So the stuff that we've been reading about, the civil stuff, doesn't have anything to do with the medicine charge right now, in my opinion, from what I've been reading. So like all the stuff, and obviously the civil stuff is like coming out. It's a one-sided thing by the plaintiffs that haven't put that out. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty interesting. Like they're trying to definitely get the public influence into the trial, which is going to be cool. So yeah, 2-3 games sounds about right? I mean, Alvin Kamara literally had video of him beating somebody up in the elevator, and he only got 3 games. So it'll be interesting.
And again, 2 games, not worried about it. That'd be completely fine. I'm okay with that, especially since we keep losing others in that range. Like Miles Sanders' groin injury, won't play at all in the preseason. That certainly makes you worried, especially because we are already concerned about a target share from a rookie quarterback in general with Miles Sanders. So it's just hard. Like it's the same thing with Breece Hall. Like you can try to pull these guys down in the rankings, but like, who are you going to put over him? Get to that next group of guys, and it's just the same problems we're talking about. So I don't mind Joe Mixon still. I think he's properly being drafted right now and will become a value.
Were you guys already drafting Jaguars? I just want to go back to that real quick. Are you missing out on a ton of these Jags now based on their price points, or
I was?
Because I feel like I am.
I put a lot of 4th round Calvin Ridley, and then when he skyrocketed into the 3rd round, I stopped taking him.
Same.
I've been a little lighter on Christian Kirk just because of where he was going in ADP in the early 5th. And I like guys like JSN, Ayuk, Deontay, any Seahawks player, really. I enjoy taking and reaching in that 5th round to kind of correlate with it when I grab DK. So I've been a little light on Kirk. I've had a little bit of Zay. I think I'm just a slightly nudge below the field. And then Evan Ingram, I'm about average, just to get stacked with Trevor. So.
Yeah. I think I'll actually have a more Tank Bigsby, Zay Jones stacks with Trevor Lawrence than I will Kirk and Ridley, just based on ADP, because Lawrence still dips. And so that's when I start trying to figure out backdoor ways to have exposure to him.
I've been doing the same thing occasionally, like whether it be Zay, Tank Bigsby, Evan Ingram, like trying to get some different mixtures of Trevor Lawrence. But I think most of my exposure came, like Chris said, very early in the draft season. And I feel like I'm not getting as much Jaguars as I wanted to this offseason, just because of how the Ridley price has really caught me off guard, to be completely honest, a little more than other players. I understand it because if you look who's going around him, it's like Calvin Ridley or Jerry Jeudy. You have the same concerns over both of these players, like in terms of the ADP price. But I'm glad I grabbed. This is why you draft early, right? Because now I got my value on the Jaguars. And now that I'm fading it a little bit, I still feel okay about it. Not great, but at least I have some.
Yeah, and the Jaguars big boards I did, so the first drafts that were launched on Best Ball, I do remember taking a lot of Jag stacks, but I also had a lot of ETN before the Bigsby deal. So not that they're a wash. ETN can still get there, but whereas after the draft, I've been taking 0 ETN.
I've also been taking 0 ETN.
Yeah, if ETN blows up, my shares are all sunk, man. I don't know, man. Like Bigsby's already looked like he's beating him.
The blow up guy that kills me is a good question. I think it's TJ Hawkinson. Some at the beginning of drafts, I do have the obligatory Justin Jefferson, Christian Watson, tack on TJ Hawkinson. But I checked the other day because he's one of my fades in redrafts as well. I hate his ADP, just doesn't make sense at all given who he is. for fantasy production, but I have 3% Hawkinson. So if he blows up as a top 3 tight end, that one will definitely kill me. And then who else? Actually, maybe Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley's probably another one if he blows up. I don't think I've been taking much of him at all.
Well, while we're waiting for these to fill, do you want me to pull up my exposure to some of these players as we talk through them?
Sure.
So
I was just asked the other day. So
me?
I know for a fact, like my top 5 guys, one of them's Kendry Miller, unfortunately. That's going to be an L on my part. My top 5 guys are Tyler Lockett, Keenan Allen, Kendry Miller, Hunter Henry, and Geno Smith. I think are my big ones.
Gotcha.
Lockett's the only one over 30% for me.
Elijah Mitchell, Darius Slayton, Jalen Warren, JSN.
Jalen Warren's up
Smith.
there. Devonta Smith's a good one to be on.
I mean,
if we
want to do high exposures, if you want to pull mine up, your boy is still firing some high exposures to certain players. I am going super heavy on my Chiefs.
Look at these 3 guys. You're over 30%.
Yeah.
I love this, man.
It's Bateman, it's Rashee Rice, it's MVS, and then right below them is Patrick Mahomes. I'm looking at currently Underdog. We're just looking at Best Ball Mania at the moment, but I can switch between all of them, and you'll see, like, if I go to DraftKings, it's not going to be much different. We're going to look at our exposure again. It's Rashee Rice, it's Bateman, it's Jalen Warren. As you can see, though, some of our tools allow you to see like the difference on ADP. Like I'm not getting value on the top 2 guys, but like Jalen Warren, I have really high value. I have real high value on Gabe Davis, MVS as well on where I was drafting them before. So we can kind of play around and talk about some of these guys and let your chat roast me on some of my exposures.
First off, Rudman himself, Nick Rudman from Underdog Marketing, just put out the signal.
I might have sent him a DM.
Wise man. You went beyond Twitter. You went to the DM. So looks like we got a little bit of help. The whales follow him. I bet we can fill this Underdog one. And then second of all, I am high on Rashee Rice. So I agree with you. I like Rashee Rice carving out a role in the second half of the season. I'm still in on Sky Moore, which is a complete flip from the big board pre-draft. I was not in on any Sky Moore. And then what happened was Kadarius Toney became a 70 overall pick and Sky Moore was going around 115. And so I was just playing the game of trying to get more Sky Moore. Mm-hmm. Looks like we may win that one if injuries have anything to do with it. But I still love Rashee Rice. He's a top 10 player for me.
My highest exposed Chiefs player is Rashee Rice as well. It's Rashee Rice and Pacheco. I don't know how I feel about the Pacheco one since he's still in the yellow shirt, but it's all good.
For Rashee, the argument for me going back to the draft was always 97% boundary route rate in 2021. And then 87% slot rate in 2022. So, like, no matter where they play him, he can get on the field. And he's the type of player with video game production, albeit against smaller schools, that, like, can blow up. He's a really good player.
I just did, I'm doing a Mastiff by myself, which is the $1,000 buy-in on Underdog. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to get real unique with it because I got the 112, of course. I mean, what else was I going to get for a pick number on this? But I went with Pollard and Mahomes in the first 2 picks there just to get like a little bit of a different build. And I just did my last 2, my 11th and 12th round picks or something like that. And I've stacked Mahomes with Sky Moore, Rice, and MVS on this team. And if you want a little insider that I haven't released on the show, I think I'm going to single QB this team. I'm not going to get another quarterback because the advanced structure in the Mastiff is 6 out of 12 advanced to round 2, 3 out of 6 to round 3, and then 2 out of 4 to the finals. So when I have Mahomes on a 6 out of 12 advance rate team, I don't really think I need a second quarterback. I can take the 0 for the most part and still finish in the top half of the draft and just kind of rely on an overly stacked Mahomes team. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Do you want my thoughts first, Daniel? You mind if I go first?
Go for it. Yeah.
So I think it's very good for advancing purposes. Like you're going to have more shots at the flex spot, but you know, if you run into a team that also has Mahomes and they have a differentiator at the quarterback position, like for example, last week 17, Danny Dimes went off, you know, for all those rushing touchdowns and Saquon getting, you're kind of toast. But then again, Mahomes going nuclear for 3 weeks straight if possible. So, I mean, it's a good gamble, especially if you've done multiple entries into the Mastiff. So
I think I don't need him to go nuclear except in week 17 because of the advance rate on the other two playoff rounds, right? Like as long as he's solid enough in the other two ones, and he's probably going to throw for 5,000 yards again this year.
Are you looking to stack Bengals in that type of format? Because I know in this one, if we can fill the Bulldog again, I know like we necessarily don't need to, we will, but we don't need to prioritize, heavily emphasize stacking week 17 since it's still an 8-man advance rate, I believe. 18.
So I do have Tyler Boyd on the team. I'll run through the team for you real quick.
Tyler Boyd's always just there.
I think team stacking is way more important than the bring back.
I agree.
For these big
8 teams advance, I think that's really important. Yeah.
So the team right now, as stands, is Mahomes, Tony Pollard, Breece Hall, J.K. Dobbins. And then at wide receiver, it's Debo, Jahan Dotson, Sky Moore, Tyler Boyd, Nico Collins, Rashee Rice, MVS, and George Kittle. So kind of solidified all the other positions, and I'm just throwing volume at wide receiver in this particular one. Not my standard draft style, but
you don't want to take a late round Purdy at all, like at all, like just for a QB2 upside.
If it falls properly, I don't want to take him where he's getting drafted on this draft. And the quarterbacks are in this particular tournament, they seem like they're going at a higher clip than normal. So I'm wondering if Purdy's actually going to get reached on. Sam Howell might get reached on as well. I would be fine with either if I can get either of them in the 17th or 18th round. I'm not married to anything, but in my head right now, I think they're going to get pushed up the board. And those are the only two guys that I would probably want late in this, is what I would say.
I mean, I think it's worth a shot with the advance rate structure like you talked about. I mean, I definitely see it. For me, I'd probably feel a little more comfier because I've done a mastiff with a group of guys in the Deposit Kingdom, and then we're doing a second one right now. I don't think we're in the same draft, but it's interesting to see what people are doing. People are definitely reaching on quarterbacks in the other rooms as well. So I get your point.
If you're just tuning in, we are trying to fill a Bulldog or a 555 DK, whatever you want to get into. We have entries in both right now, so we're waiting to pull it up. Also, Uncle Ted talks. His 0 RB strategy is apparently just to draft all the rookie running backs. So there is that. Although I do think A-Chain was one of the bigger winners of preseason because if you were pushing down A-Chain because he played behind Myles Gaskin and Savon Ahmed in a preseason game, like imagine that event occurring in a regular season game. Not this universe. It will not happen. So I do not worry about A-Chain whatsoever. And at least he was the team's starting kick returner, which means he'll be active every week.
I was big on A-Chain this offseason. As you can see, I'm at 22% exposure and Best Ball Mania to him at the moment with like positive ADP differential on him. Look, we knew Dalvin Cook was a possibility going there, but I just felt like I just never thought he was going to do it. Like I never thought that they really needed him to go to that team with Mostert, with Jeff Wilson. Why would they muddy that backfield more when they invested somewhat in A-Chain? I understand that teams don't live by our logic, but it just seemed like a pipe dream for him to go there, in my opinion.
What were you saying,
Chris? I drafted the same way. Like I didn't think Dalvin was going there. I talked to a couple of my buddies. They asked the same question, but I have like over 40% exposure to the Miami RBs. I got like 15% A-Chain, like 16% Raheem, and like the remainder going to Jeff Wilson. Like I was all in on that Miami backfield because I did not think Dalvin Cook would go there. And similar with the Bears RBs, I'm a little more heavier on Roshan, so I'm hoping that like he dominates in these preseason games to hopefully get on the active roster, which I think he will. But there's some concern there, obviously, that he might be, inactive for game day. That's what I hear, at least.
Well, A-Chain is easy to do with Raven stuff as well. Because it's so hard to get a bring back for the Ravens because it's like Tyreek, Waddle. What do you do after that? And not just A-Chain. It's like you're grabbing any of the Miami backfield guys, to your point. I almost grabbed a Miami guy in most of my drafts because you want some sort of bring back to that value of Bateman or Flowers or whatever you're grabbing. So Miami backs were big on my board as well this year.
How many are we looking at now to fill?
Well, we've actually moved down and we need 10 now for the Bulldog. and we need 6 for the 555 on DK.
Okay. 555 sounds like it may happen then. Okay. Since this is not a sponsored show, we can talk about everything. We're trying to help our friends at Underdog out. But I know, Rob, you've been doing a lot of drafters behind the scenes. So what's going on at drafters?
So drafters is going
which may be plan C, by the way, if we don't fill either.
Drafters is going to overlay, and it is going to overlay by a significant amount, it looks like. I'm guessing they're going to miss by 20% or more, probably 25%. So that is cumulative scoring. If your listeners are not familiar with drafters, it is best ball, but there is no playoffs in it. So you don't have to worry about your week 17 correlation. You don't have to worry about like some of that extra stuff that you're worrying about in the playoff format stuff. And it's just your best team wins. The best team drafter that year wins. So they're going to overlay their big contest as a $20 buy-in. And I was real behind. I think I'm up to 30 teams out of the 150 right now, but I plan to max it by the start of the season. I'm going to get my 150 in. So I'm doing 2 at a time. I'm usually getting 8 to 10 drafts in right now a day on drafters, just trying to make sure that I max, because it's the most positive EV that's going to be out there for best ball.
Have you been doing any drafters, Chris?
No. I did a lot last year. I maxed it out last year, and I was under the similar assumption that at the time when I started playing, it was like 9% fill, and that was like a month to go, and then everyone gets all that messaging out, and then it got all the way up to like 80, 81%, which is still a great overlay. I was just hoping more for like a 50% overlay. So for me, I think it's the right thing to do. I just have allocated my money elsewhere. So I'm not doing drafters this year.
What are some big ADP differences that are noticeable at drafters, Rob? Since, everyone knows Zay Jones and Smith and Jigba on DraftKings on Underdog. Mm-hmm. Who are the ones on Underdog I'm forgetting about that differentiate heavily from DraftKings?
Dobbins is still really cheap on drafters.
Okay.
So he's sort of like the DK price over there. So you can build a lot of really good Dobbins teams over there. We're starting to see Ramondre fall on every site to like the 4th. Some people have seen him go to the 5th round. I haven't quite seen that yet, which just blows my mind. Like the overreaction on some of this stuff is like insane. This is our edge every year, right? Like this is just literally our edge. We got it with Alexander Mattison in the early part of the season. We knew what was going to happen there. But to finish answering your question, it seems to be more like the DK prices than the Underdog prices for the most part. No one has significantly stood out to me on just a drafters level, is what I will say. I think if you're looking for a comparison, it's more like DraftKings.
What's fun is that I thought Ty Chandler was one of the big winners of the first week of preseason, just the way they used him. Also for routes. And Kevin O'Connell mentioned after the game that he was just like applauding Chandler, especially in pass pro pickup. Like I was drafting Dwayne McBride, given the ADP differential. So I went from drafting Alexander Mattison 9th round to then getting out by the time he went to the 5th round, and instead drafting Dwayne McBride. And after the first preseason game, I was like, okay, I actually need more Ty Chandler because it does look like he has this role locked in. But even his ADP really isn't budging much, which is exciting because like he's a freak that we should be actually getting higher. 85th percentile athlete that comps to Jamal Charles and Tevin Coleman. And now this like ambiguous wide open backfield where everyone's extrapolating Madison's 6 starts from a different coaching staff for Dalvin Cook. So yeah, I think Ty Chandler was one of the bigger winners that I keep wanting to add in the last rounds.
Totally understandable. I have been grabbing some of him. I've been mixing a lot of those backs in this year in the background with Ty Chandler. Malik Davis is kind of my favorite late round running back to grab.
Me too.
Yeah. I love Malik Davis for a late round spot this year. It just seems so obvious, and I feel like so many people are missing it.
I wish I knew if Deuce Vaughn could translate to the NFL. Like it's the grand question, because if he can, I don't know if he can against actual NFL players, not third stringers. But if he can, like, he's the more talented player than Malik Davis. But again, I genuinely do not know if he can translate. I have no idea.
But don't you feel like even if, like, let's say Pollard goes down, but please God, don't let that happen. My bags
Oh
are
no,
packed.
please do not.
Please
do not.
But hypothetically, don't we think that even if Deuce is the better player, they're still going to play a decent amount of Malik Davis with the two of them, and there's still slightly some standalone value for Malik Davis with Pollard in there for some, like, I'm not saying you're going to get points from him every week, but he might give you some individual weeks even with Pollard healthy, it feels like.
Dude, even if Pollard's getting run into the ground, they might start using Malik Davis in the goal line a little bit just to give him a breath. You know what I mean? Like that could happen. Let me ask you a question, Rob, since we're talking about drafters. My strategy last year when I did drafters was kind of stack the divisional opponents and then work the schedule backwards if there was any like-minded players. Is that what you're doing this year as well or no?
I don't get too involved in divisional. It can break some ties on drafters for me here and there. I mean, if we want to get like super micro with that, divisional games are actually lower scoring than typical like out of division games. So other than like the AFC West or something like that, I don't think it's something that you actually have to go out of your way to do. And real quick on drafters right now, they have 31,000 entrants and they need 111,000 to fill. So they're 80,000 entrants away from actually filling that tournament. So to Chris's point, the word is going to get out. You're going to see a big influx and you're going to see a big spike come through there. But I just don't think it's going to be enough. I don't think it's. So I think it's like there's some free money to be had, is what I'm saying.
No, you're right. Last year they said they had 20% overlay, which is really good. And after that, I remember watching the thing, just seeing it spike up over like the last 2 weeks, and I was like, man, I just really hoping to get that 40% overlay. But they just right at the end, everyone sees it too, and they just pile into it just to get some shots at it.
Yeah, it's definitely going to happen. It's definitely a thing, but yeah. So it's been what I've been doing.
80,000 that much, yeah. It's not going to happen that much.
80,000 in less than a month.
It's a lot lower than it was than last year, I believe. I think because I remember starting in like mid-July and it was only like 6% filled, and I was like, oh, this is going to overlay no problem. And I thought it was going to overlay by like 40%, 50%, and then out of nowhere, just zoomed up. But 20% is still great. It's amazing.
Trying to make sure I switch players that we're talking about on my exposure so that your chat can roast me.
Okay.
I love Hacker, man. He's such a good dude, and the draft IQ is awesome. Love using him.
Yes, he is. He is a great dude. He has set up some really good tools for us over at Spike Week. I use this to help find some of my combos of players that I don't have. That's kind of like one of the things that I'm looking to do to differentiate a little bit. And it was a joke like 2 years ago. We're going to be looking for combinations that we haven't drafted, but I actually do that quite frequently. I did something today where I took a Monra and a Best Ball Mania at 103 just to mix up my exposure with a Monra. So I went a Monra, Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts. And I had a Monra 0%, even though I draft a million teams with either of those two guys. So those are the little things I'm looking to do. And I use the tools to kind of help me figure that out.
Yeah, I like to bring up the Eagles point too. Like when we took, I've been taking a Monra with Tony Pollard instead of CD, because it could be either one of those guys in week 17 that you need. So
we were talking about that the other night because I was bringing this up to Eric on one of our shows. Right at that back end of the first round, you have the Nick Chubb, Garrett Wilson stack happening all the time, but you also have that Amon-Ra with CeeDee Lamb or Tony Pollard stack happening like at a double frequent rate than anything else. So is it actually viable to be making sure that you take Amon-Ra without either of the Cowboys there so that you're differentiating your Amon-Ra exposure a little bit more? Just because how many people are tapping either of those guys? CD more so than Pollard, but I think the Pollard one's happening as well. So
yeah, I just saw one in the big dog. I was shocked at that. I was like, oh wow, they're doing it here too.
Yeah. So that's one of those little micro things. This is the stuff I think about as I'm driving around. I should be thinking about literally anything else, but here I am thinking about best ball stuff, and that was literally one of my driving things. I'm like, Amon-Ra's going late, but there's 2 Cowboys there. What is his exposure with all the players around? Like, what is the actual Amon-Ra Garrett Wilson exposure right now? Even though they're right next to each other at that back end, I bet it's lower than every other player with Garrett Wilson in that area, right?
Oh, so like, what is the Garrett Wilson and Tony Pollard exposure is what you're saying, or Garrett Wilson and CeeDee Lamb?
Right. You could do it with either of those players too, because those guys are probably going more so with Amon-Ra. But Amon-Ra specifically because there are 2 Cowboys. So that's kind of why I was thinking Amon-Ra more than anybody else, because they're looking to game stack that a little bit more.
Yeah, when I take Amon-Ra, I usually don't take a lot of Cowboys at the top. Like, I'm not a big fan of CeeDee Lamb. I usually take Garrett Wilson over him, just my personal preference. But I do end up with a lot of Amon-Ra cooks. Like he's in the 80s, and usually people are trying to stack him if they build a Dak Prescott stack. But I'm not looking usually to do a Dak Prescott stack. I'm usually like probably taking 5th and 6th round JSN, Tyler Lockett, and stacking up Geno, or getting a late Darren Waller, and just compiling my 12 slot, 11 slot that way. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I'm with you. Like, I guarantee there's less combinations of Garrett Wilson and Amon-Ra because they're not playing in Week 17. So it's interesting that you're going through that process heavily, which is great.
I have not filled the BBM yet, but I do want to get in and get more Breece Hall at the end of the 5th round. I feel like I want that exposure in my life, especially since we're trying to look beyond 4 to 6 weeks that we think that's the Band-Aid, or Dalvin Cook, if he even makes a dent, that's where the range is. Even though he's the one who's injured, not Breece Hall, oddly enough.
Yeah. That's kind of wild, that whole situation. So here's a question while we're still waiting. I did this last night on a drafters draft. I took Breece Hall at the 4 spot, and then I took Dalvin Cook a little past ADP on that particular team. And my reasoning was, I think we have like a 2-day window to do this if we want, because they're going to start both going this way, right? And you're going to start seeing Breece Hall slip a little bit, but you're going to see Dalvin Cook rise up just by the nature of the beast of the way people draft. So if this is something you're even considering doing, because I'm not usually a take 2 RBs from the same team, I'm not doing that too frequently, but I think it's like a little bit a way to get a little unique with that backfield and have all the production for it. But I think you have 2 days to do it. I don't think you can do it past that.
So you're asking, or you're saying then you don't think Breece Hall has been coupled with Dalvin Cook in general too often in drafts so far?
Yeah, I'm guessing it hasn't happened too often is what I would think. But to your point, it might have already been overdone. So it's like trying to think that out. I probably should have done it beforehand if we were going to do it.
I know my Dalvin Cook teams. I have a lot of like Lamar Jackson because I was trying to backdoor Dolphin stacks with the Ravens. Yeah. So I know I was galaxy braining myself into that.
Yeah, I
don't have a lot. I don't have any. I have like almost 0 Dalvin Cook. So
that's a good spot.
I've been taking. I have like 4th round Breece Hall. That's what I've been targeting, and now we're like coming up in the 5-5-5 where Breece is still on the clock with like 3 picks left, like to come back to us. And I'm going,
at what spot?
We're at the 101. So we're like at the 412, 501. We're like, turn. Are we going to take Breece? Are we going to take Breece? Or are we going to pass on him? We're still sorting out between the 4 other guys. We got like a bunch of guys in Dallas that are all jumping in on this draft. So we're hoping that it hits. But we're just trying to think, because like I saw Evan Silva's tweet about Breece and like how he even said that his knee's not feeling right, but I got to read that whole article from ESPN. So, did you guys see that tweet by Evan at all?
Yes, and it sounds like the way they're phrasing it is that Breece Hall is actually fine. They just understand they want to be precautionary and long term in approaching him. Thus, we are definitely getting a month slowed down. of a timeshare. Beyond that, though, I don't know. That's at least the way I view it.
Okay, good to know.
Which is again why, maybe we get this pad of Dalvin Cook for 6 games, but also the Jets have the toughest schedule of any team in the first 6 games. Like they do not have an escape at any point where like Dalvin would have light. So he would just have to be a touch-based option. But then you have to ask yourself, if they are bringing Breece along slowly, how slow is that? Is that still 8 to 10 touches? Because if so, that's enough to also drown Dalvin Cook. So there's a lot of nuance to it, which is why I just want to keep betting on Breece long term.
Yeah, I actually have 0% Dalvin Cook in Best Ball Mania right now.
Feels
good. Feels great.
Feels good.
You're doing great. We will give it to the top of the hour. We'll give it another 15, 20 minutes. And then if nothing fills, this can just be our friends gather to talk about exposure for an hour chat. That's fine by me. We're doing our best to fill a $500 draft, but alas.
Well, hey, let me ask you a question, Rob. On your IQ here, does it break down the exposure of what slot you get in the draft? The 101,
yeah.
the 102, the 103? Okay.
Yeah, we can actually do that. That's how I found out that through my first 80 or so Best Ball Manias, I got the 102 twice. It was not great. I did not like that. Yeah, just give me 1 second to figure that out.
No, it's cool. It's cool because like I have my buddy Michael Dubner's exposure sheet from RotoViz. Surprisingly, the 102 is my most exposed. I have like 14% to the 102 in Best Ball Mania. So I've been taking a lot of Chase, and like I'm overexposed to Chase and JJ, which is amazing. I have almost like 0 from picks like 5 to 8. So I don't know what to say on that. Hoping for the best that either the top guys pan out or the back end pans out.
We did just get an update, by the way, on Treylon Burks, who was carted off today. And carted off, of course, is not as serious in training camp. So I never worry when I hear players are carted off. But he apparently suffered an LCL sprain, which means he will only miss a few weeks. So we're probably looking at worst, questionable or missing week 1. That's it.
That's good.
Better than what it could have been. That's for sure.
Much better. But so far, carts haven't really been a big deal in training camp. So let me pull this back up.
I saw something about that where it was basically you're going to see the carts more often because they have so much further to go for the care. So.
Mitchell Schwartz, former Chiefs offensive lineman, mentioned that. Yes, that a lot of times players just don't want to walk that far. Like it's unnecessary. It's August. We don't need to be letting injured players walk that far.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's of course not good. It's not ideal when you hear it, but I don't ever worry when I hear cart in training camp. It's just so much more different than it is in an actual football game. All right, so what are we looking at now?
7 out of 12 on this DraftKings. So if anyone wants to jump in, the DraftKings is the one that is more likely to fill than the other ones. If you guys want, I can take a look at some of the other contests that are a little bit higher stakes, and maybe we can see if there's anything else that's close to fill.
Sure, check it out. What were we looking at? What were we looking at here, though, and this screen, Rob?
We were just doing exposures on this one, so whichever player you want me to bring up, I can bring up as well, and we can talk through if I'm smart or stupid, basically.
I don't think there's really any. I'm thinking about the first round exposure players who I'm most underweight on.
Is it Kelsey?
CeeDee Lamb for me.
Oh, yeah, Lamb. I'm way underweight on Lamb as well.
It might be Kelsey for me.
I actually thought I was less than this.
I think I'm like a 2% Lamb, maybe 1% Lamb. I'm really underweight on Lamb. Like when I have the option between Amon-Ra and Lamb, I always take Amon-Ra. Like I just love that guy. Like, and he's on a better offense in my opinion. I think losing Kellen Moore's a downgrade, and they might be good, but with McCarthy at the helm, he's going to control his own destiny, which could lead to a lot of running out the clock and just hoping his defense is good enough to bail him out. That's what I'm worried about.
I think for a little bit, A.J. Brown was going ahead of CeeDee Lamb, or A.J. Brown was going ahead of – no, CeeDee Lamb was going ahead of A.J. Brown, I think, for a little bit too, early on. But we've since corrected that.
Yeah, I think that was very early, and you're right about that. And, like, it just – every time – I haven't gotten, like, a lot of 112s. And when I get the 112, like Rob is saying, I see everyone always do the CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra. Like, and it's – for me, it's always, like, do the Amon-Ra, get Garrett Wilson, or get somebody else, or Pollard, or something like that. That's what I've been leaning towards. So Lamb is my most underexposed first-round player. So,
what about, since you do basically every show with Eric Beimfor at Spike Week, Rob, what are some of the players that he's underweight on?
That he's underweight on? So our big philosophical difference, and I'm really against a lot of the experts on this one, is I'm going heavy on elite quarterbacks across the board.
We've talked about that. Yep.
Yeah. So we talked about it last time, how I think DK, it's even more advantageous over there than the other sites.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the one where he's probably more underweight on some of the Mahomes, Hurts, Allen. I know he is taking a lot more Lamar, which makes sense, but so I'm grabbing all those guys. So he's kind of underweight on them. Just a lot of the players that you would normally be underweight on. I think he's also underweight on CeeDee Lamb. We've had a few CeeDee Lamb discussions, to Chris G's point. Like, CeeDee Lamb feels mispriced, but he'll never budge. He feels like he's a half round to a round too expensive. He felt like he was last year as well. And he just settles there. He doesn't move. He's always right in that little wheelhouse of the 1-2 turn for the past 2 years. The other thing is he never slides. So not only does he never like move up, he never slides. He is in a 4-pick window that he always goes. You'll see some of these other guys slide down the board a little bit. You'll see some of them slide up. CeeDee Lamb never slides. So
it's like 10 to 13 is his range. 9 to 13 is his range. And for me, it's always like, oh, I'll get him on the route. I always think, oh, I'll take CeeDee Lamb on the route. Never happens. Never get it.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that. As far as the elite quarterbacks, I really like your strategy on that because I wish I was more exposed to elite quarterbacks. I tend to back off because I don't want to click second round elite quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. So when I was drafting early, they were going early in the second, so I was missing out on a lot of them. My most exposed elite quarterback is Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields, if you want to consider him elite. If you're just talking about the top 3 guys, Mahomes, Hurts, and Allen, I'm most exposed to Hurts because I consider my QB 101. And I obviously have like 20% Devonta Smith. So that's, for me, I'm a little underweight on those other 2 guys. And it's not because I don't want them. It's just because it's insanely hard to get it in the 3rd round. And that's what I've been trying to do a lot of.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. Hurts for me is at 16%. I am fading, like kind of soft fading Josh Allen. I am at 7%, which is higher than I thought I would be, but that's because I've gotten him in the 3rd round a little bit more than I expected. But yeah, I'm basically, looking at 13% Lamar. I'm trying to get some Herbert teams. I've done a couple double elite QB builds, like maybe 3 or 4, just to kind of see what I could build out. My favorite team still so far was taking AJ Brown at 103 overall, getting Hurts and Joe Burrow with T. Higgins, and just building that team out from there.
Dude, you're gonna laugh at this, dude. That's probably one of I have a favorite team. It's kind of similar, but it's not with Higgins. It's with Chase.
Oh, really?
I got Chase, Burrow. I got Hurts and Devonta. That's what I got. I really love that. Like it's really fun.
Yeah, that's a really good look.
You're
I don't even remember, like, my BBMs. I can't tell you what my favorite team is. I don't remember any of them. I just know exposures. My Dalmatians, I know off the top of my head, but not the BBMs.
I can actually pull up that team real quick if you guys want to see it, since we're waiting. And then if you guys want, I'll do a BBM on my account if you guys want to split a BBM.
Yeah, hey, just let me know if we're going to do it, because if not, I just got to text my wife to go pick up the kid. That's it.
Gotcha.
We'll look at that team real quick, and then we can decide from there. Doesn't matter to me.
All right. So I actually have 2 Burrow and Hurts teams, which I was not 100% sure that I had. So the one I was talking about is Hurts Burrow, Joe Mixon, Zach Charbonnet, Brian Robinson, Khalil Herbert, Kenneth Gainwell, Leonard Fournette, AJ Brown, T. Higgins, Kadarius Toney, Gabe Davis, Rashad Bateman, MVS, Alec Pierce, Irv Smith, Sam Laporta, and Kate Otten.
Oh, that's a great team, dude.
So you get Hurts double stacked with AJ Brown and Gainwell. You get Burrow double stacked with Mixon and T. Higgins. The MVS bring back for that one. I don't think I have a bring back for the Eagles. It's not one that I always feel like I need an Arizona bring back for them. So that was what I was looking at with that particular team.
Yeah. You want me to read off mine? You want me to do, or you do the other one first? Sorry.
So the other one is similar to yours. I have Burrow and Hurts with Alexander Madison, Kamara, AJ Dillon, Brian Robinson, Devon Achane, with Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, DJ Moore, Jahan Dotson, MVS, DPJ, Hodgins, Renfro, Irv Smith, McBride, and Jake Ferguson.
Nice. That's real nice. Yeah, mine's more similar to that one. Yeah, I got Hurts and Burrow, and then I got real lucky that Gibbs fell to me. So I got Gibbs, Javonte, Penny, Damian Harris, which is not looking so good, Singletary, Chubb Hubbard, and then my wide receivers are Chase, Smith, Pickens, J-Mo, which is not looking too good, Rashee Rice, Marvin Mims, Isaiah Hodgins, Olamide Zaccheaus, and then my tight ends are Goddard and Irv Smith. So for the
nice. So you got the double tight ends as well. Yeah, I think that might be a miss on these teams for me, is maybe not getting one of the two. Although I got Irv Smith on both of them, so I guess I just didn't get Goddard on either. Yeah, no, I think they're fun. I think they're fun to build out. You're not doing it often, but you're giving yourself full access to 2 of the top 3 offenses in the league. And if you get that team through, I mean, you're ping-ponging weeks in the playoffs. It's just, I mean, we're already trying to thread needles here, right? Like,
no, I'm with you. I think I have a Burrow, Kansas City, Mahomes team too. Like, obviously, it doesn't have Kelsey, but it's fun. I mean, when they give you 5th round Burrow, you just take it. Like, okay, you're gonna give me 5th round Burrow, I'll take it. I'll have to be super concentrated on wide receiver and hope for the best in my running backs, pretty much. But it is what it is. You're just doing it with 1 out of 150, you know. So I look at it.
Yeah. So we need 6 for the DK. So somebody dropped out of that. We need 8 for underdog. It's up to you guys if you want to do this BBM or if you just want to talk exposure. I'm down for either.
So we'll go another 10 minutes, then probably get out of here if it doesn't fill. I haven't hard out. I set aside an hour for a draft every week, but then I got to get going. So that's okay, though. And Fantasy Dog, I do know who Devin Allen is. Eagles receiver, I still believe. Sprinter. I don't know why you mentioned Devin Allen, but I do know who he is. Also, it's just kind of funny if we just have the first ever draft stream that there isn't a draft on it. So I mean, there's a first time for everything. It's the middle of August. It's okay.
We aimed for the moon. We wanted to do a high stakes draft, and
I mean, we literally got underdog marketing on it. Like we tried our best. That's the thing about the streams, or that's the thing about the big drafts. That you have to kind of call Karain, Herzig, Liam, Overzet. You got to get them all in with you. Otherwise, you do run the risk of them not failing.
Yeah, that's kind of why I did the Mastiff series as a slow draft, even though I don't like slow drafts. That way I could just put it on there. I could think through every 2 picks kind of, and I'm just basically doing it on a 2-pick basis just so that we actually got it filled and was able to run it.
Who is
I did not want to do any. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to ask a question. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, I tried to jump in Daigle and Liam's big dog stream, and I got accidentally locked into a slow draft. They didn't give me the option. I'm looking at my clock. I'm like, oh, when's my pick? I check. I'm like 10 hours. I'm like, I go fudge.
I did like that team, but the whole reason to jump into it was to try to get 5th round Breece Hall, and we didn't even get 5th round Breece Hall. So we just ended up drafting one of the very last big dogs, which is okay. That gave me a bullet in the big dog. I didn't have one before then.
Well, me and Overzet we're going to do one because we do one every year. We do a big dog together every single year for the past 3 years, and I messaged him. I think on streams. Yeah, I messaged him on Sunday. I'm like, it's like 60% full. We got to do it this week. And then you texted me, Daigle. You're like, big dog's already full. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is happening?
I texted you in the morning and said, let's do a big dog together on Wednesday. It was 76%. I texted you literally that evening and said, big dog full. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. It was insanity.
I couldn't believe how fast it went. I was like, man, I thought I was going to have time to like take a break. Can't take a break.
Yeah,
it is.
Gotta keep firing.
I'm still doing the approach like you though, Rob. Like I'm not doing many puppies. Like I support the puppies, but I'm just doing so much everything else that I'm just staying out of puppies this year. Especially since ADPs get a little crazy with wide receivers. And then weekly winners. It's just so, I don't even know how to really approach them still. Like it's just so wild because like ADP doesn't matter there. That like every time I jump into one, my head is blown. And I just have to take a moment. It's like a Black Mirror episode. It's like, I don't know what happened, but I can't watch this again until tomorrow.
We're going to have to talk about all of the new season of Black Mirror at some point because
I actually haven't watched any of it. That show,
I love
the older I get, the more that show terrifies me.
I watched the first 2 or 3, I think. I don't know where I'm at now. Because now I'm back home in Dallas. I don't have a lot of time for TV anymore. Like in El Paso, I'm by myself. So, what did you think about the astronaut one? You like that one or what?
I like the astronaut one a ton. I thought that was a really good episode. It really felt like Black Mirror to me. So I did dig that one quite a bit.
I really enjoyed it, and then like at the end, I was kind of like, oh man, I saw this. You see it coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know the setup. You know what's going on.
One of the first seasons, the one that still haunts my dreams, is the bringing around her robot dead husband, because like I think that's kind of the way we're going with AI is to hang on to our loved ones rather than to enjoy or be grateful for a finite life. And so that one terrifies me to my soul.
Well, we have had people that like to taxidermy their pets, which is a real weird thing. So it's just the next evolution of that, right?
Dude, you know what really intrigues me? The San Bernardino concept.
4 more steps.
Uploading your consciousness into a computer and living out your life. That's crazy. I could get behind that, honestly. Yeah. Just like living in like a crazy world or something like that. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know. But
yeah. I love Black Mirror. Luckily, I do a show that ended up becoming something that we needed to talk about. So I was theoretically doing it for work, but I was doing it more for enjoyment.
Which, by the way, Reeves and I, we do still owe you, although it's coming crunch time of the season, we still owe you a ghost story show. I'm still down. It's just really hard to find a night where both of us, it works.
Yeah. We're just going to review a fun movie, which is becoming popular again. Like, I was in the pet store today, and they had Killer Clowns from Outer Space, like outfits for animals. And I'm like, what is going on with this movie? Why is there a big resurgence on this movie all of a sudden? There's a video game coming out. They're going to end up remaking it. Watch. And we're going to be like, this movie? This is what we're remaking? But yeah.
We've run out of things, man. We've run out of things. Everything's categorized and chronicled. Everything's chronicled. It's like we're running out of stuff to make. It's crazy.
Yeah.
He says he fears the technology as literally I'm incapable of drafting without putting it on a stream for my entire life. So, all right. I think we waited. We waited an hour. I'd actually rather go down in history as the first draft stream where we didn't draft. That seems fun, honestly.
It's impressive, actually.
Overzet did the fastest slow draft. We did the first draft stream without a draft. I'm okay with that.
So, what do you guys think about this team that we didn't draft?
I think it came out pretty good. If you ask me, hypothetically turned out great.
Technically, it can't lose.
We did see all the Spike Week tools though.
You did,
Rob. So please tell everyone where they can go if they want to look at their own lineups in the way you viewed them, just to continue getting the correct exposure portfolio.
Yeah, you can go over to spikeweek.com, sign up for our tools where you can do the draft IQ, which we showed off a lot of this show. See not only the player exposure that you have, but did you get value on that player? Are they lighting up green? Are they lighting up red? Should you be getting more? You can check your combos out. So go to spikeweek.com for that. Hop in the Discord, and we offer assistance for that because there's a lot to do. with it, and it's obviously an overlay as well that you can use on your desktop to see all this stuff while you're drafting live.
And Chris, now that you are back from West Texas and all your bullets and BBM are full, what will you be doing?
Me, I'm just going to start prepping for the FFPC main event in Vegas. Are you going this year, Dago, or what?
I am, yes. We're only like 3 weeks away.
I'm going to focus more on that. I'm watching the ADPs on the Mojo site, just checking them out, and still doing a couple slows, slept over. So I'm gearing towards season long now. What my next step is.
I almost came. I was this close to going, but I was like, I was just in Vegas for 10 days. I don't think I want to.
You did live there, have to rearrange things. Yeah, you were there a long time.
Yeah. So I'm going to Jersey for 2 days instead, which sounds worse.
It's kind of like Vegas when you think about it.
Yeah, it is.
And then if you're in the redraft streets, subscribe, like not only this channel, but to The Most Accurate Podcast, because we are bringing back bonus episodes the rest of the way to make sure you get caught up on your draft. So until next week, when we actually will do a best ball draft, be a little bit kinder than what's required. We'll see you then.